Hey, lovely leaders. Welcome back to the Not Your Dad's Leadership Podcast, the podcast for all the girlies out there looking to deepen their leadership practice, whether you're a new manager, rising through the ranks, or just ready to lead in a new way. I'm Lindsey, your fellow leadership girly, guiding you to a more human first outlook on work. And yes, that includes you too. You are a human. So on this podcast, we really focus on feminine leadership, self-love, and soft skills to bring that humanity back into the workplace. Okay. How was y'all's Thanksgiving? I hope it was great and you got to eat all the food and got a good nap in. I took a pretty long Thanksgiving break and it was so nice. The weekend before Thanksgiving was my sister-in-law's wedding, and it was one of the most beautiful weddings I've ever been to, and I got to be a part of. And it was in Estes Park, Colorado, so up in the mountains, and the weather was so nice. It was like in the 50s while we were there. The venue was gorgeous, and their vows were perfect, and the dance party was so fun. And I got to dance to Taylor Swift with my 3.5-year-old niece. Like, she loves the song Look What You Made Me Do, and does like this foot stomping thing and, gets like really, really into it. It's so sweet and so fun. And it's like a memory I'll cherish forever. And when we got back, I was a little sick just from like traveling and, all of the activities. And so I just rested. And, normally during Thanksgiving, we do travel home to see family, but since, we were at the wedding, we just decided to stay home in LA. And we do have this tradition. It's an old tradition that when we are home for Thanksgiving, we make a homemade pizza. And that's what me and my husband did our first Thanksgiving together almost 10 years ago. I think for some reason we were both like staying home the first year we were together. We had been dating for like 4 months. So we spent our first Thanksgiving together and yeah, we made this homemade pizza. So when we are home, that's our tradition. When we are home in LA, that's our tradition together. And then yeah, we just watched a bunch of football and we did go to see Wicked, which was fun. I think I was a little underwhelmed, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe I need to see the stage play too, but I really like loved the costumes and the set designs and the acting and the singing. I just don't know why. I was just like a little underwhelmed. So sorry, that's my unpopular opinion. I liked the movie, just not all parts of it. So anyways, let's get into it. So I want to ask you how you are feeling as we close out the year. December, this time of year, is always a great time to reflect. And especially these first couple of weeks, because, it's before we get to like the craziness of the holidays and holiday parties and having to be there and here and here. And we're just so busy. So these first couple of weeks of December are always a good time to, just look back on the year and everything we accomplished or failed at and just celebrate ourselves and others as we, set up for a great new year. And celebrating yourself is essential to thriving as a leader, and not just celebrating ourselves, but others as well. And as leaders, we are so focused on others, but we need to remember to acknowledge our wins too. So, in this episode, we are diving into why women struggle to celebrate themselves, some science-backed reasons to do it more, and how to make this a habit in your leadership practice. So, why do women struggle to celebrate themselves? And why do they struggle to celebrate other women? When I went to write this first section, I was really, thinking of all the reasons women don't celebrate themselves or acknowledge their wins. And I think it would be remiss not to bring up the fact that some women have problems celebrating other women. And most of it comes down to external factors, but I think we also really have to be self-aware enough to understand why we might be hesitant to celebrate other women as well. So let's talk about it. It's an important topic. So first, though, reasons why women may struggle to celebrate themselves. And we'll start with the obvious. Society and culture tells us that when we try to celebrate ourselves, we are selfish for owning our wins or too much for being ambitious. And when we get these messages, they keep us small and, celebrating ourselves is seen as indulgent and not essential. So we just don't celebrate ourselves. We downplay our accomplishments to avoid being seen or judged as arrogant. But the thing is, feminine leadership invites us to reclaim that space. To celebrate ourselves is to remind the world and ourselves that we are enough. So no matter what culture and society says, just please celebrate yourself. You are enough and you deserve it. Another reason is perfectionism. And this is true for all my high achieving girlies. I'm one of them. And this one, is very, very personal to me. It's one of the reasons I had a hard time celebrating myself. If we don't think that we're perfect, we don't think we're worthy of that celebration. Like, think about it. How many times have you just brushed off a win or an accomplishment or a promotion because you told yourself, well, it wasn't that big of a deal, or, I could have done better. And really, this is where self-love and leadership intersect. Because you're not celebrating because you're perfect. You're celebrating because you showed up, tried, and you made an impact. And if you did fail, you learned something from that failure. So celebrate that too. And lastly, we feel like if we stop to celebrate ourselves, we lose momentum. And there is just no time to stop, right? We got to keep going, going, going. And that is wrong, obvs. And when you are going from one thing to another, you don't stop to remember what you actually achieved, how you achieved it, and what you learned. So, now it's months later and you are asked what you've been working on, and all that pops in your head is just like memories of emails and spreadsheets and phone calls, but not the actual thing and its actual effects on the company or on your team. So slow down, celebrate yourself. You deserve it. So, what is stopping you from owning your wins? Is it fear of judgment? Is it imposter syndrome? Or is it that belief that it's no big deal? Just ask yourself, what's stopping you? And when it comes to celebrating other women, why do you think you might have a hard time? And this also comes down to systemic issues, the patriarchy, internalized misogyny, and traditional leadership values. So women have been pitted against each other for generations. And in traditional leadership models, women often feel like they're fighting for those limited opportunities. So we hold back praise or recognition out of fear that it might diminish our own value. And I had this memory pop up when I was, managing. I manage a team of up to 9 internal sales and warehouse people while also managing, those 70 outside sales reps. So I was managing this amazing sales assistant and we were working on something together. And my boss says, so you better watch out, Lindsey. Gloria is going to be our new sales manager. And Gloria is not her real name, obviously, but as a young, insecure, like newly minted sales manager, what kind of message do you think that sends me? And now I feel like I can't give her too much praise because she might come take my job, like my boss just announced to the whole office. So that was my mindset was, now us two are being pitted against each other instead of looking at the toxic traditional leadership style of my bosses. So instead of building her up and celebrating her, which I do want to say, I always said thank you to any, of my team members. And I always said good job, but I never gave it more than I felt necessary. And I really, really regret that. And, in the end, this doesn't just hurt us individually. It creates a culture of distrust and isolation. And when we don't uplift each other, we reinforce those systems that keep us small. So, in the end, celebrating another woman's success doesn't take anything away from you. In fact, it adds to the collective strength of women in the workplace. And feminine leadership teaches us that collaboration and connection are paramount to keeping an effective workplace and making an impact. So it's really not about taking from someone else's plate. It's about making the table bigger so there's more room for all of us to thrive. And celebrating each other becomes a radical act of rejecting that scarcity mindset that these systemic traditional leadership practices have given us. So, what if you started viewing other women's wins as your wins too? How would that shift things in your workplace? How would that shift things in your personal life? So now that you know why we might have a hard time celebrating ourselves, I want to talk about the actual neuroscience behind celebrating gratitude and praise, and also the energetic woo-woo reasons, because we talk about mindset, energy, and actions on this podcast. So, for all my fellow neuroscience nerds, did you know that when you take a moment to celebrate yourself or someone else, your brain releases dopamine, which is your feel-good chemical? And it's like giving your brain a little high five. And the best part is dopamine isn't just about feeling good, it actually makes you more motivated. So celebrating isn't a distraction, it's actually literally the fuel that keeps you going and motivated. The dopamine also helps with imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome isn't just in your head, it's, actually in your brain too. So when you doubt yourself, your amygdala, which is your fear center, kicks into high gear, making you feel anxious and hesitant, like you're waiting for someone to, catch you not being good enough. But here's the thing. Every time you celebrate yourself, your brain gets a little hit of dopamine and it starts to rewire itself. You're literally training your brain to believe that you're worthy. So over time, those imposter syndrome thoughts get quieter and confidence will start to take their place. And I think that's so cool because it's like, neuroscience, science, and self-love in action. So another fun fact, when you celebrate someone else, your brain releases oxytocin, and that's the love hormone, the one that helps us feel connected. It's why recognizing others strengthens relationships. And of course, as leaders, we always want to be strengthening relationships. So when you celebrate someone's work or their effort, you're building trust and creating, a team vibe that just feels good for everyone. Oh, and one more reason to celebrate, it reduces stress. When you acknowledge wins, big or small, your brain gets the signal that it's okay to relax. It's less cortisol, more chill. So over time, that builds resilience. And, resilient leaders are the ones who thrive at the end of the day. And Celebrating yourself and others isn't just, in your brain. It's energetically creating positive ripple effects all around you. And when I say energetically, I do not mean, like crystals and oracle cards, although I love both. I mean, like the vibe, the energy that you are putting out into the world, how you feel about yourself, your accomplishments, and your worthiness radiates outward and impacts the opportunities and people you attract. So, when you're celebrating yourself, you are shifting your energy to a higher vibration. You are shifting from scarcity to abundance. And by expressing gratitude, you are also telling the universe you are ready and capable for more good things to be grateful for. And of course, celebrating yourself is contagious. So when you own your wins or celebrate others' wins, you are giving them permission to do the same for themselves and others. Okay, so now, how do we celebrate ourselves and others when we are leading? So first things first, make sure you are clapping up yourself and others in the moment, when these achievements and accomplishments happen. But we also want to keep track of our wins and failures and lessons and so forth, because at the end of the day, like this is our job. And in order to get raises and promotions or interviews, we need to be able to advocate for ourselves and our team if necessary. So, what I'm about to tell you to do, you can do this in a notebook, in a Google Doc, in Excel, OneNote, Notion, like whatever you want. For me, I'm a pen and paper gal, but if you love the digital life, you do you. So what you're going to do, every Friday, you're going to schedule 10 to 15 minutes to do this. Like literally schedule it into your calendar or planner. Like this is like closed door time, no meetings, just 15 minutes to be with yourself. Okay, so we're going to do this in a few layers. So first thing you're going to write down is your self-love celebration. What is something that you are proud of yourself personally this week? Did you stick to a workout routine? Did you set a boundary? Did you relax? Did you adjust your mindset? Did you read more? Did you eat your favorite meal? Did you spend time with your loved ones? Did you juggle everything as best as you could? Like literally anything. This is like no matter how big or small, write it down. And it doesn't have to be one thing, write as many as you can. When I first started doing this, like this, celebrating myself changed my life, if I haven't said that yet. But when I first started doing this, I was looking like every week, I would be looking for like a deep life changing thing to celebrate because, we're told like those are the accomplishments that we're supposed to celebrate. But now, of course, like looking back on it, it was those small little things that I did every day or during the week that actually changed my life, the small things. So celebrate it. Nothing is too big or small. Just write them down. Then you are going to write what you have achieved this week at work. Did you close a deal? Did you finish that project? Did you send a certain number of emails? Did you hit your deadlines? Did you manage your time better? And this will be very niche to your industry. And in this, be sure to include numbers, percentages, like anything tangible. And if possible, write this in story form. So like beginning, middle, end. This was a problem before. This is what I did, and here is the results. And that's when you can bring in like the numbers, percentages, anything tangible. So any sales numbers, how many clients you met with, how much coding that you did, how many followers you gained. Like no matter your industry, like what metrics that you should be keeping track of. So I can't really tell you here, like what metrics to keep track of. So write those down. Okay, next. What did your team accomplish? If you are a team leader, it is important to keep track of their accomplishments and empower them to keep track of their own. Keep track of them for you So when the person above you, is like, hey, what's going on with Barbara? What have they been working on? You can tell them. They are a direct reflection of your leadership. So you really should be keeping track of what anyone below you is doing. And you can have a folder for each one. And, like I'm an organized weirdo, so I would probably like have the team member folder with their name on it, and then inside that folder do the year, and then inside that folder do the month, and just have a Google Doc or a working doc that you are keeping track of everything. And like I said, I highly encourage you to encourage your team to do this. So if something were to happen to you, they are able to advocate for themselves. All right, that sounded really morbid. I'm sorry. I just mean, if you get fired or laid off or choose to go to another job, and that folder like gets deleted or it's on your personal computer or something, that they are able to advocate for themselves. Okay. And last, write down any lessons that you learned, any mistakes, failures, meltdowns. Like they are going to happen. We can't just act like they're not going to happen. They're a part of life. But when we can look at them as a way to learn, we are less likely to repeat these patterns. And, this might not be every week, but I would leave a spot to reflect on your lessons learned. And while you're doing this, of course, please be very compassionate with yourself and be kind to yourself. But this can really be anything from personal to your job duties to your leadership practice. And a few example questions to reflect on are just a few ideas, and you can come up with your own questions. What didn't go as planned this week, and how can I give myself grace for it? You could ask yourself, was there a moment where I could have shown up differently? What can I do next time to feel more aligned? And you can ask yourself, what's one mistake I did this week that actually taught me something valuable? And in addition to the celebration, journaling and reflecting, you can also take screenshots or save emails or cards with thanks and praise and impact your team or you have received or made. Just save these two. And you can save, like, this could be called your brag book or your accomplishment journal or just whatever you want to call it. Like, I love me journal. I'm a badass journal, like just whatever you want to call it. Whatever motivates you to do it every Friday. And so if you do this every Friday, you have 52 tangible accomplishments for yourself and your team. You have 52 mistakes that you have learned from and overcame. And you will have 52 examples of self-love. And having this collection of wins and celebrations will help you in self-evaluations or reviews with your team, meetings with your boss, job interviews, trade interviews, or when you start getting that imposter syndrome, or when you're just feeling like those weeks when you just feel like you aren't doing anything or you're not making an impact. You are. You have this proof that you faced challenges and hardships and you overcame them again and again. And that's how we, stop that imposter syndrome. And that's how we build momentum and confidence back up on those weeks where we just feel like nothing is happening and you are making such a difference and such an impact. And just go back to this journal whenever you need to remember that. All right, girlies. The bottom line is you are worthy of celebration, and not because of what you achieved, but because of who you are while you achieved those things. So, as we wrap up the year, let's commit to celebrating ourselves and the people around us, not as an afterthought, not as an obligation, but just as a practice of self-love and of leadership. So I want to hear from you guys. You can message me, leave a comment, send me an email. I want to know what you're celebrating in 2024. What were your wins? What were your failures? I want to hear it all. And I want to hear you celebrating yourself and others. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. You can follow me at the Self Love Knowing. My website is the selfloveKnowing.com. And I can't wait to hear from you for your wins. And I will see you next time.